The Omega Protocol, a race against time. Chapter 1. The outbreak. The world had changed forever. It began with a small outbreak in a remote village in China. The disease was something they had never seen before. The symptoms were frightening: high fever, cough, and difficulty breathing. The government tried to contain it by sealing off the village, but it was too late. The disease had already spread beyond the borders of China. The news reports were alarming. The disease was spreading like wildfire, and no one knew how to stop it. Governments started to panic, and scientists scrambled to find a cure. But it was too little too late. The disease continued to spread, and soon it reached every corner of the world. In just a few weeks, everything had changed. People were dying in the streets, and there was no one to help them. Hospitals were overrun, and doctors could do nothing to stop the disease. Governments declared a state of emergency, and people were ordered to stay indoors. But it was too late. I watched as the world around me fell apart. The streets were empty, and the skies were filled with smoke. People were fighting over food and water, and there was no law anymore. It was a world gone mad. I was one of the lucky ones. I had managed to stock up on supplies before it all began. But even I knew that it was only a matter of time before they ran out. I had to find a way out of the city before it was too late. I packed my bags and headed for the highway. It was a dangerous journey, but I had no other choice. The streets were filled with infected people, and I had to be careful not to get too close. The smell of death was everywhere, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the streets. As I walked, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Every sound made me jump, and every shadow seemed to be a threat. But I kept going, driven by the need to survive. Hours turned into days, and I was still on the road. I had lost count of the number of people I had seen die. But I didn't have time to mourn them. I had to keep moving. Finally, I saw it. A faint glow in the distance. It was a town, and it was my only chance. I picked up the pace and headed for it, hoping that they would take me in. As I approached the town, I could see that it was surrounded by a high wall. There were guards at the gate, and I could see that they were heavily armed. I approached them slowly, my hands in the air. "I need your help," I said, my voice shaking. The guards looked at each other, then nodded. They opened the gate and let me in. I had made it to safety, but I knew that the world outside was still in chaos. And I knew that I would have to face it again if I ever wanted to get back to my old life. Chapter 2. Building the time machine. The town was safe, for now. But I knew that it was only a matter of time before the disease would find us here too. We needed a way out, something that could take us away from this nightmare. That's when I remembered the project I had been working on before the outbreak. I had been building a time machine. It was something that I had been working on for years, and I had almost given up on it. But now, it could be the key to our survival. I knew that building a working time machine was no easy feat. It required advanced knowledge of physics, engineering, and a lot of trial and error. But I was determined to do it. I gathered the few people who had survived the outbreak with me, and we began to work. We scoured the remains of the town for materials, salvaging pieces from abandoned buildings and vehicles. It was a slow process, and sometimes it felt like we were getting nowhere. But we didn't give up. We worked day and night, fueled by the desperation of our situation. We banged our heads against the wall more times than we could count, and we suffered one setback after another. But we kept going. Months turned into years, and we were still working on the time machine. We had gone through countless designs, and we had scrapped almost as many. But we were determined to get it right. Finally, we had a machine that we thought might work. We had built it using parts from various eras, and it was a mishmash of technology, but it looked like it might work. We all stood around it, staring at it with a mix of hope and apprehension. "Here goes nothing," I said, as I flipped the switch. The machine hummed to life. Lights flickered on and off, and the air around it seemed to shimmer. We had done it. We had built a time machine. We knew that using it would be our last chance, and we had to use it wisely. We had to go back in time, find patient zero, and stop the outbreak from ever happening. We knew it was a risk. We could change things in the past that could create a ripple effect and alter the present. But it was a risk we were willing to take. We climbed into the machine, a tight squeeze because of how cramped it was. We all held our breath as I set the dials and pushed the button. We were transported into a different time. I could feel the machine shaking as we moved through time and space. We landed with a jolt, and we stepped out into a different world. It was a world that was very different from the one we had left behind. The air was cleaner, and the buildings were newer. But we couldn't enjoy it yet. We had to find patient zero and stop the outbreak before it ever began. We had a long journey ahead of us, but we were determined to succeed. The fate of the world was resting on our shoulders, and we would not let it down. Chapter 3. The hijack. We had landed in a different time, and it was a relief to see that the world was different from the one we had left behind. But our mission was far from over. We had to find patient zero and stop the outbreak from ever happening. We decided to split up, each of us taking a different sector to search. We covered a lot of ground, but we found nothing. We were beginning to lose hope when we stumbled upon a group of people who were talking about an outbreak in a remote village. We approached them, asking for more information. But they were reluctant to talk to us and told us to leave. That's when things started to get ugly. Suddenly, a group of armed men appeared out of nowhere. They pointed their guns at us and demanded that we hand over the time machine. "We know what you're planning to do," one of them said. "And we won't let you." We were stunned. We had no idea who they were or how they knew about our mission. But we knew that we couldn't let them have the machine. The fate of the world depended on it. We tried to reason with them, but it was no use. They were determined to take the time machine from us by force. We knew we had to fight back. The battle was fierce. It seemed like there were more of them than there were of us, and they were all heavily armed. But we fought with everything we had. We dodged bullets, ducked behind crumbling buildings, and fired our weapons as accurately as we could. The sound of gunfire echoed through the streets, and it felt like the battle would never end. But eventually, we gained the upper hand. We managed to take down most of our attackers, and the rest fled. We were battered and bruised, but we had won the battle. But we knew that this was just the beginning. We had to get the time machine to safety before anyone else tried to take it from us. We picked up the machine and started to run, but it was difficult to move it quickly. It was heavy, and we had to be careful not to damage it. We heard the sound of footsteps behind us, and we knew that we were being pursued. We ran through the streets, dodging obstacles and trying to stay one step ahead of our attackers. We knew that we couldn't outrun them forever, and we had to come up with a plan. That's when we spotted a car parked on the side of the road. It was an old, beat-up car, but it was our only hope. We piled into it, barely squeezing the time machine into the back. We started the engine and sped off, leaving our attackers in the dust. As we drove away, we knew that the danger wasn't over. We had to get the time machine to safety, and we had to continue our mission. We had to find Patient Zero and stop the outbreak from ever happening. But for now, we were just happy to have survived the hijack. Chapter 4. The race against time. We had narrowly escaped the hijack, but we knew that we weren't out of danger yet. We had to get the time machine to safety, and we had to continue with our mission, to find Patient Zero and stop the outbreak from ever happening. The car we had stolen was old and temperamental, but it got us where we needed to go. We drove for hours until we reached the outskirts of a small village. It was there that we hoped to find the origin of the outbreak. But as we got closer, we could see that the village was in a state of chaos. People were running through the streets, screaming and shouting. Doctors and scientists in hazmat suits were rushing around, trying to contain the outbreak. We knew that we couldn't ask for their help. They would think we were crazy, and they would never believe our mission. We had to act quickly and carefully. We parked the car outside the village and approached on foot, blending in as best we could. We searched the streets, looking for clues, but we found nothing. We knew that we had to get closer to the source. That's when we spotted a lab on the outskirts of the village. It was heavily guarded, and we knew that it was where we had to go. But getting in would not be easy. We spent hours casing the perimeter of the lab, looking for weaknesses. It was heavily fortified, and we knew that we couldn't just walk in. But we were determined to find a way. Finally, we came up with a plan. We knew that the guards would be more vigilant at night, so we decided to strike during the day. We dressed in lab coats and pretended to be scientists from a rival company. We hoped that our disguise would be convincing enough to fool the guards. We approached the gates and flashed fake ID cards at the guards standing watch. To our relief, they let us through. We made it inside the lab, and we were shocked at what we saw. The scientists were experimenting on live animals, trying to find a cure for the outbreak. But we knew that they were too late. The disease had already spread too far. We searched the lab, looking for samples of the virus. We knew that we had to take them back to our time to study and find a cure. But our plan was foiled when the alarm sounded, and the guards discovered our true identity. We ran through the lab, dodging bullets and trying to find an escape route. It was a race against time, and we knew that we had to get out before it was too late. We burst out of the lab and into the streets. We knew that our attackers would be coming after us, and we had to move quickly. We ran through the village, dodging obstacles and trying to stay one step ahead of them. Finally, we made it back to the car. We threw the time machine into the back, and we sped off into the distance. We had the samples of the virus, but we knew that we had to get them back to our time before it was too late. It was a dangerous journey, and we had to be careful. We knew that we could change things in the past that could alter the present. But we had no choice. The fate of the world depended on our success. The race against time had begun, and we were determined to win it. Chapter 5. The betrayal. We had made it out of the village with the virus sample, but we were under no illusions that we were safe. We knew that there were people who would stop at nothing to get their hands on the time machine and the virus sample. We drove for hours, trying to put as much distance between us and the lab as possible. We knew that the fate of the world was depending on us, and we would not let it down. That's when the unexpected happened. One of our group, someone who we had thought was a friend, betrayed us. He had been a double agent all along, secretly working for the villains who wanted the time machine and the virus sample. He pulled out a gun and pointed it at us. "Hand over the virus sample and the time machine," he snarled. "Or you'll regret it." We were stunned. We had trusted him, and now he was threatening to kill us. But we knew that we couldn't just hand over the virus sample and the time machine. We had to think fast. We tried to reason with him, but it was no use. He was determined to get what he wanted. And he had the gun to back it up. We could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the hesitation. It was our chance. One of our group, quick as a flash, lunged at the betrayer, tackling him to the ground. The gun went off, and we heard the sound of bullets whizzing past us. We ran for cover, ducking behind a nearby building. We knew that we had to act quickly if we wanted to get out of this alive. We all huddled together, trying to come up with a plan. We had no time to waste. We knew that the betrayer would be back, and he would be gunning for us. That's when we noticed a nearby helicopter. It was our only chance. We had to get to it before the betrayer did. We crept along the side of the building, trying to avoid being seen. We could hear the sound of footsteps behind us, and we knew that the betrayer was on our tail. We burst out from behind the building and made a run for the helicopter. We could hear the sound of bullets whizzing past our ears, and we knew that we were in for a fight. We made it to the helicopter, but the betrayer was right behind us. He aimed his gun at us, ready to take us out. We had no choice. We had to risk everything. One of our group, a seasoned fighter, lunged at the betrayer, taking him down with a well-placed punch. The gun clattered to the ground, and we breathed a sigh of relief. We had made it. We had escaped the betrayal, but we knew that danger was still all around us. We knew that we were racing against time, and we had to get back to our time to find a cure for the virus before it was too late. With the betrayer subdued, we hopped into the helicopter, the virus sample safe in our hands. We took off into the sky, the sound of the rotors pounding in our ears. Our mission was far from over, but we would not let anything stop us. The fate of the world was depending on us, and we would not let it down. Chapter 6. The final showdown. Our mission had taken us through time and back, and we had faced betrayal, hijacks, and all sorts of dangers. But we were nearing the end. We were one step closer to finding a cure for the virus. We landed the helicopter in front of our base, and we made our way inside. We knew that the cure was in our hands, but we still had to synthesize it before we could save the world. We worked tirelessly, mixing chemicals and running tests. We knew that we were racing against time, and every second counted. Finally, we found it. The cure for the virus. We had done it. We had saved the world. Our joy was short-lived, however. We received a message that our enemies had found us. They were on their way to our base, and they would stop at nothing to get the cure and the time machine. We knew that we had to prepare for the final showdown. We hatched a plan, and we prepared ourselves for battle. The sky was dark, and the wind was howling. We could see the headlights in the distance, and we knew that the enemy was getting closer. We took our positions, our weapons at the ready. It was now or never. The fate of the world rested on our shoulders. The enemy arrived, and a fierce battle began. Bullets flew, and we dodged them as best we could. We fired back, our shots accurate and deadly. The battle lasted for what seemed like hours, and we were on the brink of exhaustion. But we knew that we couldn't give up. We had to win. One of our group, the leader of the team, stepped forward. He holstered his weapon and faced the enemy. He told them that enough was enough. He spoke about the importance of the cure for the virus and how it was a matter of life and death. To our surprise, one of the enemy's leaders stepped forward. He acknowledged the importance of the cure and the gravity of the situation. He proposed a truce, a way for them to work together for the good of the world. We were stunned. It was a twist we never expected. But we knew that it was the right thing to do. We accepted the truce and shook hands with our former enemies. We worked together, both sides contributing their knowledge and expertise to synthesize the cure for the virus. We knew that the world was watching, waiting for us to deliver the cure. And we did. We synthesized the cure and distributed it all over the world. The outbreak had been stopped, and humanity was saved. We landed the helicopter on the top of a building, the sun rising over the horizon. We had done it. We had saved the world. We looked at each other, a sense of relief and accomplishment washing over us. We had gone through so much, but we had come out the other side victorious. We knew that we would never forget this adventure, this mission that had taken us through time and back. We would always remember the dangers, the twists and the betrayals, and the final showdown that had saved the world. Chapter 7. The Grand Reveal. We had done it. We had saved the world from the deadly virus, and we had made peace with our former enemies. But there was still one thing left to do. We had to reveal to the world the existence of the time machine. We knew that it was a risky move, but it was something that had to be done. The time machine was a powerful tool, and it had the potential to change the course of history. We had to ensure that it was in the right hands. We held a press conference, and the whole world was watching. We stood in front of the cameras, our nerves jangling, and we revealed the existence of the time machine. The world was stunned. They had never heard of anything like it before. But we knew that we had to be transparent with them. We explained why we had kept it a secret, and we reiterated that it was a tool that could be used for good or evil. We opened up applications for people to get access to the time machine. We received thousands of applications from people all over the world. We carefully vetted each application, making sure that the people we chose were responsible and could handle the power of the time machine. And then we did something bold. Something that no one had ever thought was possible. We took a selected group of people on a trip through time. We allowed them to witness history firsthand, to experience the past in a way that had never been possible before. They saw the pyramids being built, they watched great battles being fought, and they saw the world evolve through the centuries. It was a humbling experience, and it gave them a new perspective on the world. The people who had gone on that journey became ambassadors for the time machine. They spoke about the importance of the tool, and they taught others about the importance of preserving history. We had done it. We had saved the world from the virus, and we had opened up the doors to time travel. It was a moment that would go down in history, and we were proud to be a part of it. We looked back on our journey, on the trials and the tribulations, and we knew that we had done the right thing. We had taken risks, we had faced our fears, and we had come out victorious. We knew that there would be challenges ahead, that the world would continue to be a complicated and nuanced place. But we were ready for it. We had each other, and we had the knowledge and experience that had come with our journey through time. We looked out into the world, into the future, and we knew that it was our responsibility to make it a better place. We were determined to do just that, one step at a time.